Good morning, class. I hope you are having a wonderful day. This morning I would like to work through one of the practice problems with you. It's titled Concrete Pad Estimate. So on your practice problem page you see a concrete pad from a top view, and we have some dashed lines that represent where we are going to lay our reinforcement bar or rebar. And what I've done here is I have provided a dimension right here with respect to this left line, this left vertical line on the board, to our dashed line. That's 3 inches. Remember that we are not allowed to have any of the rebar sticking out of the concrete pad due to safety reasons. So the closest we can get to the edge of the concrete pad is going to be 3 inches. So all right, number 1, calculate the number of cubic feet required to construct the concrete pad. So in our problem, it gives us the dimensions. It's 16 feet by 18 feet by 4 inches thick. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply these 3 values together to calculate the volume of the pad. So 16 feet times 18 feet. And we need to convert 4 inches to feet, and we know that 4 inches is equal to 1/3 of a foot. So 1/3 of a foot. Okay, everyone take out your calculator. Let's multiply these 3 values together. So I've got 18 times 16 times 1/3. I get 96 cubic feet. Okay, number 2, convert cubic feet to cubic yards. Now, before we use dimensional analysis to convert from cubic feet to cubic yards, I just want to draw a picture of a cube here, and I'll put it in isometric view just to kind of help give you a visual. Okay, all right, so that is going to represent my cubic yard of cement. So we have 3 feet there, 3 feet there, and 3 feet tall. And so we know that 3 linear feet equals 1 yard. So what we want to do is calculate the number of cubic feet in a cubic yard. So right here, we have 3 times 3, so that's going to be 9 square feet. We multiply 9 square feet times 3 feet for the depth, and that is going to give us 27 cubic feet. So 27 cubic feet equals 1 cubic yard. Okay? Now, the question is asking us convert cubic feet to cubic yards. So we have 96 cubic feet in our concrete pad right here. So 96 cubic feet. We're going to use dimensional analysis, so we're going to multiply by a ratio that will allow us to cancel the units of feet cubed. So we're going to multiply by 1 cubic yard divided by 27 cubic feet. My units of cubic feet will cancel. So on our calculator, let's do 96 divided by 27. This is going to give me 3.55 cubic yards. Okay, and that is number 2. Number 3, determine the total number of rebar units required for the pad. Each unit of rebar is 10 feet. So each piece of rebar we have comes in a 10-foot section. Now there's a note on the practice problem here, and it says when more than 1 bar is needed to extend over 10 feet, the adjacent bars are overlapped end to end 6 inches and wired together. Okay, so they come in 10-foot sections. So let's say 10-foot pieces used. And we're just going to keep a tally of all of the 10-foot pieces that we use, okay? Because number 3 wants us to determine the total number of rebar units required for this concrete pad. So what we're going to do is we are going to start right here at the edge of the dotted lines here. Remember, we cannot place a piece of rebar closer than 3 inches to the edge of the concrete pad, okay? So what we're going to do is stretch this 10-foot piece of bar out right there. And so since we are starting at 3 inches above this edge here, this is a 10-foot section of rebar. So if I were to dimension my end point here with respect to the bottom edge, this would actually be 10 foot 3 inches. And I'm going to include that dimension here. So 10 foot 3 inches, okay? Now, we're going to lay 1 bar. So we've got it vertically here. We're going to lay 1 bar on the each of the dotted lines here. So there's 2 10-foot sections, and we're just laying down whole 10-foot sections here, okay? All right, when we've done that, we have laid 9 10-foot sections into our pad right now. So let's keep a tally. All right, so 9 pieces used. Now what we're going to do is we can start up here. Remember that we are starting 3 inches away from the edge of the concrete pad. And so I'm going to lay this down right here. But this is only going to require 8 feet. So that means one of the workers is going to use a chop saw with a metal cutting disc blade on it to cut 2 foot off of this metal rebar piece. So what let's do is let's keep a track of 2-foot sections. So each piece that we lay down here is only going to be 8 feet. And right here it's overlapping 6 inches, okay? Because we're 3 inches above this dotted line when we lay down the 10-foot sections. And since we're 3 inches away here, laying down an 8-foot piece, we're going to be at a position of 8 foot 3 inches. So we have 6 inches of overlap, and this is what our problem tells us is required. Okay, so let's go ahead and lay down. We've got an 8-foot piece there, but we're using a 10-foot section. So 1, 2, and so we're going to use 9 more pieces of our 10-foot section. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But remember, a worker had to cut off a 2-foot section, so we have 9 2-foot sections left over. All right, because what we want to do when we're estimating the cost of this concrete pad is we want to use all of the material possible. We want to reduce the amount of waste because that is costing us extra money. Okay, so what let's do is let's go ahead and lay down some 10-foot sections here. Okay, so I've used 10 10-foot sections. Let's go ahead and add this to our list here. Okay. All right, next, let's start over here at this corner, and we're going to take a 10-foot section, but this only requires a 6-foot piece, okay? So we're using a 10-foot section, but it's only requiring a 6-foot piece, so a worker is going to cut off 4 foot of that piece of rebar. So 4-foot section. All right, so we've got that there, and we have used a 10-foot piece of rebar, okay? So we have all this left over right now. Let's start to use our 4-foot and 2-foot sections, so we don't have to use the 10-foot pieces and waste any material. So if I use that 4-foot section here, we've got that, so we've used the 4-foot section, and then I'm going to use a 2-foot section, but remember, we are required to overlap end to end 6 inches and wire them together. So my 2-foot section, I'm going to start right here, which is 3 inches beyond or to the right of this dotted line. And it's going to end 3 inches before this dotted line. So these 2 pieces of rebar will actually be end to end. But right here we have a 6-inch overlap, so we would be able to tie those together with wire. So I used a 2-foot section. But right here we're required to use more rebar because we have to have this 6-inch overlap. So I'm going to use another 2-foot section right there, and we would wire that end together and wire that end together. All right, so what let's do is use another 10-foot piece, and we're going to cut it. So that means we have another 4-foot section. Remember, this is only 6 feet. All right, so the dimension between these lines here is 2 foot. Okay, so what I'm going to do once again is lay down another 4-foot piece of rebar. So I'll erase that. A 2-foot section, we'll use that there so we can wire that together. And then we're going to have to overlap these. So I'll put another 2-foot piece there so we can wire that together. All right. So we're going to use another 10-foot section, but we're only using a 6-foot piece of that, so we're going to cut it. That's going to give us 4 foot left over. Let me add the 10-foot section to our tally there. Okay. Next, let's use that 4-foot piece, and we're going to use a 2-foot piece right there. So now we have 4 2-foot sections left over. I'm going to use a 2-foot piece so we can tie all that together. Now we only have 3 2-feet sections left. So once again, a 10-foot section, we're going to use it and cut it to 6 feet. So that means we have a 4-foot section left over. We want to immediately use the 4-foot section. And then we're going to be required to use 2 2-feet sections, and we're going to tie all of that together. So now we only have 1 2-foot section left over. Okay, right up here. So we're going to use a 10-foot section, but we have to cut it, leaving us with a 4-foot section left over right here. And we can lay down the 4-foot section, so I'm going to use that. We have a 2-foot section left over. Sorry, there we go. And we would be required to use an additional 2-foot section. Okay, so that's going to make 34 that we used. And we would cut one of the sections. So there we go, so we can tie that together right there. All right, so that's going to be 34. I put another tally mark there. And so we have 1 8-foot section left over. But we have used 34 total pieces for the 10-foot pieces, okay? So I'd like you to work through this practice problem. So I've provided the worksheet in the files section of your Canvas account. So just go ahead and work through this, and then I've also uploaded an assignment that is very similar to this, and you can send me an email. Go ahead and scan the document when you have completed all of the work. And if you have any questions, send me an email, or I can schedule a Zoom meeting with you, or you can call me on the phone. I hope you have a wonderful day.